was doing some work with Tad Coffin, who won a gold medal in the Olympics, I think, in the late 70s. And Tad has been working on a bunch of stuff, but he introduced me to this concept of grounding and how much we hold on to a lot of chaotic energy, and our equipment holds on to chaotic energy, and our horses have absorbed so much chaotic stuff, and living in stalls with rubber mats, under fluorescent or LED lights, and with all the phones and the garbage and everything, that all this chaos gets stuck in them. And then we're often riding them on synthetic surfaces, and they aren't getting enough turnout. So he was showing me how we could do this grounding, and how the grounding was so powerful to them. And he had made these tables to ground his equipment by putting copper on a little thin piece of plywood, and then he uses a grounding plug that, you know, the three prongs, the bottom prong goes to the grounding rod of your house.
Like a grounding rod that we use for our electric fences.
Yes.
Grounding these horses.
Yes. So you plug this grounding rod in, a grounding plug into the plug, and then you attach it to the copper, and then you put your stuff on there. And you can also use like grounding fabric and this copper on the physical horses to help exchange, you know, to take away all this positive chaotic charge. You can fill them full of electrons, and it is unbelievable.
The difference in my horses, when I took rubber mats, I bed with 10 inches of shavings.
Cool.
Super deep stalls. And I have a single mat, or a single line in the center to help me. Gotta have some help.
Right.
And the difference, especially with the horses now that they're barefoot, is quite amazing.
I did a clinic at the house, I don't know, a month or so ago, and I was just getting into the grounding piece, and I had a piece of copper for every person that was in the clinic to sit on, hooked to a grounding plug. And so I had them all sitting on this copper, and I was presenting the stuff, and the people were all there, and nobody got, you know, yawning or twitchy, or I got to go to the, you know, how they get. Well, I ended up presenting for probably longer than I should have, but everybody was like still focused. Well, we got up, and I guess that day we had 7 horses that people had brought. And of those 7 horses, 4 of them, we started out with them on the ground. 4 of them were really problem horses. Like, people don't usually bring easy, nice horses to my stuff. So I always say, bring your worst horse. I hope it acts as terrible as it has ever acted in its life. Do not be embarrassed. You will be the star if your horse acts bad. But anyway, we do this concept called playground of safety, and in that space the horse is free to do whatever it needs to do to clear itself or to ground itself. And 4 of those horses had never even come close to like laying down or doing anything in playground of safety. Well, we got out to the ring after all these people had been so grounded on this stuff, and within 5 minutes every horse had laid down. And within 10 minutes, there were several that had laid down and rolled like 7 times. Like, people were, it was profound, the difference in the horses after we got the humans grounded. The other piece, sort of the other sideways piece of this grounding, has to do with inflammation and disease within the body. So, you know, we have this white blood cell deal, that the white blood cells go to the place where you have disease or inflammation or infection or whatever. And then they send out their little stormtrooper guys, which I think are called leukocytes. That could be wrong. I'm not a great detailed word person. But those things are missing an electron, and they go to the infection or wherever it is and rip an electron out of that, and that little cell of the infection dies. That's how the white blood cell deal works. Well, the little dead thing then turns very acidic and it turns into a free radical, which I didn't understand, these free radical things they're talking about our face and stuff. Is, well, the free radical is the dead cell that got the electron ripped out of it. Well, then it floats up. Now it's missing an electron. So it will go into the body and try and find a healthy cell and rip their electron out. So that's how
it's an ongoing thing.
Yes, and that's how this cycle of inflammation is. Well, if we have this copper or normal earthing or grounding, you could do bare feet on the wet grass, you can suck all the electrons up out of the earth like that. But me, like, I'm not outside out barefooted in the grass. I'm wearing rubber-soled shoes all the time. I don't do that. But with
that's a good point that you bring up. Sorry to interrupt, but that's a really good point.
Yeah,
right? That's a very.
I have
good
a friend
point.
that does that. That specifically will go barefoot and be on
and
the
I've
earth
heard of
and
that.
do that.
So sorry to interrupt, but that's a really
but it's a huge thing. And watching the What is Earthing movie on YouTube, like, it's free with Clint Ober, like, it's a fascinating thing. But I was like, how can we hack this? Because I'm not going to go lay naked in my front yard. Like, maybe 30 years ago that might have been an okay thing to do. I was like, there's got to be a way to hack this. Well, with this copper is highly alkaline, so it's going to favor the electrons, and electrons, you can suck them all in by sitting on this copper, working on your computer, doing your emails. I actually put a piece of copper, like just a piece of copper that I got at Hobby Lobby, on the floor in the bathroom, hooked to a grounding plug, and we stand on it to brush our teeth. So you can do that. And the electrons are stored in your fascia, in the fascial goo, not in the collagen and elastin fibers, but in the little gooey stuff. So if we are grounding enough or earthing enough, you're going to have these electrons there waiting, and when the little free radical goes and floats off, it can get its electron in the fascial goo, and now, everything is good.
Yeah, not causing any damage in the process.
Right.
I do too.
So it's so simple.
But so,
Aren't the biggest fixes, though, so simple?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Wow.
Yes, I think that you don't understand something enough
Right.
until it becomes stupid simple. Like, why is nobody telling us this?
Yeah,
Why do I
exactly.
not already know this?
There's not a monetary.
Bingo. And isn't that sad?
Yes.
Exactly.
It is sad. It's very sad.
My conditioning and therapy and rehabilitation program is based on movement, and it's based on lactic acid, and it's based on ambidextrous movement. I find and have found that I can erase all of my bad habits through movement, albeit ambidextrous, left-right movement.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And you can ground zero your horse, because you just rode it for a full week, and someone, trainer or you self-evaluated, and he's like, I cannot believe that shoulder in, and I can long line, or I can put my horse on my walker, or I can vibe, or all three, and you ride after about 3 or 4 days of that, and you're like, okay, so that was just erased, let's try this again. But you also get a feeling of what it's really supposed to be like. It goes back to what you said when it comes to the ability for circulation and the lactic acid buildup that holds inflammation. And the inflammation might not be from injury or pain, it can be from food. So we also, I've switched to whole foods. I do not feed commercialized grain unless it's a whole foods grain. Because of the inflammation, which is the same thing that if you go get a cheer wine or you go get a Pepsi, that your sugar creates the inflammation, because it and I'm sorry to say that, but it
Well,
does.
no, it's a fact.
It's true.
It is.
It's true. And so I had to have a separate, I had to look back at my horse who had hind gut issues, and I had to say, okay, what's up with this? Let's just take what they eat. So if they eat hay, and if they drink water, and if they eat grain, what's in the grain? Okay, so now we're going to take the grain away. So now we're going to base it on some form of hay pellets, and we're going to hay, and then we're going to go to water. And so you just slowly start adding, and as long as that hind gut's good, I'm good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't have any special supplement that I give him. He just gets Timothy hay.
Well, you need to fill in what is good and don't try to destroy or take things away, because that's a big piece to me, is like building up
Yep.
versus taking away, and just changing the entire philosophy of training and taking the whole fear and intimidation piece out and really focusing on draw and puzzle solving and inspiring horses to find the answer, because when they can find the answer themselves, then they are then the mirror that you're holding up, they're like, when I am with her, I feel so smart, and they start wanting to offer things. And this movement piece that you were just talking about comes back to a really simple, like, I guess I got this 2 years ago or so when I was in Florida and had worked on a lady's horse, Janice Dulac, who does this Pilates for dressage. She's a really smart person. She asked me to tap on her horse, and I had done some tapping on. She's like, I see you've seen it on Facebook, and I was a little starstruck because she's really cool. And so I was tapping on her horse, and after we got done, she was like, oh my God, do you know what you're doing? You are switching a horse out of sympathetic nervous system and bringing them into parasympathetic nervous system. And I was like, okay, I'm a horse trainer. And so I was like, can you write this down and explain this to me? So sympathetic, and this goes for people, everything. Absolutely. It's everything of what you all were just talking about. Sympathetic nervous system is survival. That's fear-based. That's your fight, flight, freeze. When we're sedentary, our body tightens up. Your fascia all tightens up because you're not moving, just like you say. Things get out of, being equal through the body, bilateral. Well, parasympathetic is your rest, digest, play, learn, heal, connect nervous system. And that is going to be based in a love, confidence space. Well, every organ in our body, I just think this is fascinating. Everything has a response, a way that it behaves when it's in sympathetic and survival, and a way that it behaves when it's in parasympathetic. Rest, digest, play, learn, heal, connect. And like, for example, tear production turns off in survival. Salivation turns off. Swallow reflex turns off. Blood pressure goes up. Heart rate goes up, and this gets down to your gut deal, the blood goes out of the gut and goes into the extremities to prepare for fight, flight, freeze. But when you can switch over, tear production turns on, and now we can see these puffy bags under the horse's eyes that tell us tear production has turned on, and yay. And a horse that's been stuck in sympathetic nervous system for a long time, you'll be doing something, and all of a sudden that eye will start going drip, 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 and you'll be like, holy crap, I broke my horse's eye. And it's that all this tear ducts have been shut down. And then like the salivation turning on, well, for years we've known these things, like dressage people, one of your first things you look for is this wet foamy mouth, because Xenophon and Socrates figured that out a long time ago. Horses with wet foamy mouth, they move better. And swallow reflex turns on, blood pressure and heart rate go down, the gut starts working. But even more than that, and I guess this is sort of a show horse person thing, but it applies to everybody, there's a separate set of muscles that go with sympathetic nervous system. So when you're working in your sedentary job, you are stuck in sympathetic nervous system to a degree. So you are engaging sympathetic nervous system survival muscles. These are going to be your mechanical muscles. They're they're the muscles that you can do it, but it's not flowy.